Oh hey, oh hey, it's Chaos Cock. It's time to talk about some football, and time to talk about how you guys suck, and I'm still really good at this game. Let's go ahead and jump into this. And every week I'm going to be doing reviews like this. I'm going to talk a ton of shit. And hey, if you guys want to come on, just hit me up. We can have a conversation. We can get through Skype, and I can record the conversation and throw it up here for us. I'll be happy to have you guys on. I do this for my fantasy baseball league. Frank's a part of it. He knows exactly how much fun this is. So we'll see what happens going forward. But yeah, let's get this thing kicked off. We're going to start with Hispanic Panic Matt Soto, who took on Mike Morris's The Wall. And Soto gets a huge win here, 165, almost 166 points to 127. Great game from Patrick Mahomes. A good combination of wide receivers in Thielen, Hilton, and Kupp put up over 35. Kamara and Ingram give him 44 and a half. Mark Andrews is the breakout tight end of the first week, along with some guy I'll talk about later. He gets 21, almost 22 points. The flex position is probably the weakest spot of the week. He only puts up 6 points there from Royce Freeman. And the kicker and defense puts up 22. For Morris, great performance out of Tom Brady. 33 plus points. The wide receivers don't even match that number of OBJ, Edelman, and Allen Robinson. And instead, he leaves a ton of points on the bench in Tyrell Williams and Emmanuel Sanders. He leaves like 35 points there. Running backs, Todd Gurley, disappointing week. Sony Michel was a disaster. After that, Nyheim Hines is the only other running back, and that's a really far drop. This could be a really, really bad running back situation for Morris if anything were to happen to Gurley. His tight end's Greg Olsen, who's as old as I am, and I was already fucking hurt for this upcoming week. It's a short week for Carolina. They play tomorrow night, and it sounds like he's not going to play. Hopefully he does for Morris's sake, but we'll see if that's possible. He only put up 36 receiving yards too. The guy's aging, and he might have one or two more big games left in him, but I don't see him having a great season. Deshaun Jackson put up almost 32 and a half this week in his return to Philadelphia against his former team, the Redskins. That's a really great piece to put into that wide receiving core. And when you see Beckham, Edelman, Robinson, and Jackson as the top 4 wide receivers with Sanders and Williams on that team, that's 6 viable wide receivers every week. The question is, can Morris manage it and get the best production out of those 6 guys every week with only 4 spots to play him in? We'll see how you do. Kicker and defense is 14 points. There are no waiver additions this week from either of these guys. And before I go any further, I do want to hit on that. These are going to come out every Wednesday. I do want to incorporate what you guys did in reaction to every week in every week's roundup. So the waiver additions is going to be added onto this show. Neither of these guys did anything on the waiver this week. We'll see where this goes from here. Soto comes back and is the number 1 overall team after week 1 of the Miller division. Morris falls to the number 8 spot. So we'll see what happens next week. For moving on, we'll move on to the Death Eaters, Steve Gallo, who took on Darren Piatkowski, the only other champion of this league other than your esteemed president. Piatkowski's named his team the Dilldozer. This might be the closest matchup of the week. Gallo gets a win here by almost 9 points, despite a terrible game out of Mitchell Trubisky on Thursday night. However, his wide receivers picked him up. Hopkins, Diggs, and Gallup combined for 52 and a half points. And that includes, that's not with a 30 or 23 point performance from John Brown on his bench. So his wide receivers appear to be where it's at for this team. Hopkins, Diggs, and Gallup, along with A.J. Green, who's out until his foot gets better, and John Brown. That's 5 guys that he can conceivably start every single week. His running backs were great too. Chris Carson was good. Duke Johnson was serviceable. And if you add in Marlon Mack in the flex position, who put up over 30 points, this is another solid core here with LaShawn McCoy riding the bench as his RB4. Travis Kelce is his tight end. It put up almost 9 points. And his kicker and defense put up 17 total. This is a really strong team, and I could see Gallo going far this year so long as he gets good quarterback play. And considering Trubisky didn't perform well and Newton was even worse on his bench, that could be his Achilles heel here. We'll see what he does going forward. For Darren, great performance from Carson Wentz. Almost 33 points there. His wide receivers put up almost 29 points in Lockett, Ridley, and Marvin Jones Jr. I think he would like to have more out of Jones, but I don't know if that's going to be a thing because Detroit's not going to be very good, and they're going to be behind in a lot of games. They're going to be throwing the ball, which is good for Jones, but I don't think he's like one of their top weapons. You know, Kenny Galladay is still there. They're going to lean on Kerryon Johnson as much as possible. And this kid, Hawkinson, just came up out of nowhere, so that could be their number 3 option. His running backs this week were put up over 44 points from McCaffrey and Kerryon Johnson. I wonder if this is a case where Darren believes in the Detroit Lions more than anybody else. You know, he's got 2 of their top 3 or 4 weapons, and you know, it's going to be interesting to see what Detroit does. I don't think they're going to be very good. I think they're about a 4-win team. Tight end is O.J. Howard. He was awful. Aaron Jones was bad in the game against Chicago on Thursday, and his kicker and defense put up 18 points. Waiver additions for these guys. Darren has a ton of them. He drops Eric Ebron for that kid TJ Hawkinson I talked about. He drops Darwin Thompson for DK Metcalf. Drops the Detroit defense for the Denver defense. Drops Geronimo Allison for Giovanni Bernard. And drops Robbie Gould for something named a Joey Sly. He's a Carolina kicker, I guess. So he's already retooled his entire bench with the exception of Russell Wilson. You know, smart move getting MVS and Geronimo Allison. Whoever performed in week 1 and proved himself as a wide receiver 2 would stay and the other guy would go. I completely commend you on that decision. Unfortunately, you just don't have that good a week to take over the top spot in the Coors division. That goes to Mr. Gallo. We'll move on. And over in the Budweiser division, there's a familiar name at the top of the standings. I'll give you a moment to bask in the greatness. Bask! Okay, good. All right, now that you've basked, let me just say that I have a strong team this year, and I plan on going 3 out of 4 and defending that trophy. Good week this week from Matt Ryan, even though I left the one of the highest scorers of the week, Lamar Jackson, on the bench. You know what? I'll take that. If I can get a win of 21 points and not have to play the highest scoring quarterback on my team or the highest scoring quarterback in the league for a week, I'll take it. My wide receiving core of Evans, Galladay, and Sanu, they put up 18.5. My running backs of Barkley and Montgomery put up 23.5. My tight end of Hunter Henry put up 6. My flex was the key player of the week is Sammy Watkins, who put up almost 43 points. And he's going to be huge going forward because, you know, with Tyreek Hill going down, he's going to step into that number 1 wide receiver role in an awesome offense. Looks like Hunter Henry is going to be out for this week. It looks like he tore his ACL last year, and now it looks like he might have done it again. That fucking sucks because that was going to be my breakout tight end this year on the Chargers. Now I have to go dig somebody up. My kicker and defense was Maher and New Orleans. They put up 12 points. For Danny, terrible game from Aaron Rodgers on Thursday night. Worse from Devontae Adams. His wide receivers only put up 9.5 and like almost 10 points from Adams, DJ Moore, and Moncrief. Kenny Stills on his bench put up 9.7. These 3 guys combined put up 9.9. You're not going to win that way. And that's really where the difference is in this matchup. Dalvin Cook and Darius Geis combined for almost 33 points. But it looks like Darius Geis is going to miss time. He's got a meniscus injury. So that means Adrian Peterson is going to be the running back here again. Dalvin Cook, I really like. I know Minnesota's going to lean on him a lot this year. He could lead the league in rushing yards. I don't have any shares of him this year, but that's a really strong player to put on Danny's team this year. Evan Ingram was good for him this week at tight end. Njoku was in the flex, almost got him 10 points, and got 20 in the combination of kicker and defense. Waiver additions, I picked up Malcolm Brown for Tony Pollard. I picked up Houston's defense for New Orleans, and I dropped Frank Gore for Darren Waller, who's going to be my new tight end. Thank you very much, John Gruden, for showing me that tight end could be serviceable. Again, I take the top spot in the Budweiser division, and we'll see what Danny's capable of if he bounces back this week. He's going to be taking on the judicial branch. Moving on. Matthew Trousdale, the latter, took on Dave Langworth's Callahan Auto Parts. A lot of Tommy Boy references in this league this year, which I'm not opposed to. I'm not opposed to that at all. I'll be happy to have those kind of team names. Matthew gets a pretty solid win here, 45 points total for the win. He gets a great performance from Breeze, almost over 48 points from Thomas, Woods, and Larry Fitz, over 40 points from Fournette and Eckler. Fournette does not perform as strongly as you would have thought, especially being the wide receiver one on this team and being, a top 30 pick. But he's as serviceable as can be expected when that game was out of reach very early on. Jared Cook was a disappointment at tight end. Philip Lindsay was okay in the flex spot. And he got a great game out of Justin Tucker in Baltimore when they put up 59 points. You kind of expect those two guys to go off. He got 24 out of those. For Dave, disappointing week for Jared Goff, who was traveling across the country to go play in Carolina. Meanwhile, 43.5 points out of Dak Prescott on his bench. You really thought that the Giants were going to shut down Dak Prescott this week, didn't you, Dave? Was that a homer play? Because Jared Goff going West Coast to East in Carolina against a better defense than the Giants can dream to put on the field, that's the play you put up. Okay, Dak, 405 yards, 4 touchdowns. Sure, leave that on your bench. Or, trade Prescott away. Try to get something for him. But that I'm going to give that the boneheaded play of the week. Wide receivers this week for Dave, over 28.5. Cooper was great. So you played Cooper as your wide receiver one, but thought he was going to do well against the Giants, but didn't think Prescott was going to do well? I don't understand the logic. Mike Williams and Sterling Shepard were both bad in their matchups. Running backs, David Johnson was good. Joe Mixon is now hurt. So Dave's got an injury to Joe Mixon for his ankle. Sterling Shepard has a concussion. We're staring down this team already falling apart. Delaney Walker gave him a good week at tight end. He did pick up Peyton Barber, who gave him 4.5 in the flex spot, and then 24 points out of Gostowski and the Rams defense. There were no waiver additions from either of these teams. Matthew going Thomas and Breeze in 1-2 pays off this week. I don't know if it's going to be an every week thing because they do have to feed Alvin Kamara. They're going to feed him a ton. The ground game between Kamara and Murray is going to be a thing that New Orleans is going to rely on. Drew Brees has steadily declined over the last few years as far as passing yards are concerned. He's gone from 5,200 in 2016 to 4,300 in 2017 to just under 4,000 last year. If that trend continues, you might see him dip into like the 38s or 3,700s this year. Now, he threw for 370 this past week. That's fantastic. So we'll see if maybe a resurgence is in order. Dave doesn't have much running back depth after David Johnson. It's Kenyon Drake, who was bad, and Peyton Barber. With Joe Mixon missing time, it's going to be really difficult for him to field a pair of running backs that can compete. Adrian Peterson was inactive this week. I don't know if Matthew plans on dropping him, but he might want to hang on to him for a little bit because Darius Geis is going to miss some time with a meniscus injury, and that's who they're going to turn to. So we'll see if he holds on to him. We move on to let's see. The latter, Matthew Trousdale takes the 4 spot and second place in the Miller division. Dave's Callahan Auto Parts takes 9th, last place in that same division. Zielinski's Auto Parts, that's the other Tommy Boy reference this year, is Frank Bucco, who takes on Mike Schumann's The Judicial Branch. And what a beating Schumann takes. You know, it's like Kavanaugh's rape victims just taking that pounding over and over again. I'm gonna let this continue for a second just to think about it. Yeah. Frank gets a good week from Kirk Cousins. Serviceable week. I don't want to say it was a good week. Where it really comes in for Frank is the running backs. Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs combined for over 50 points there. That really carried the team to the win because the rest of his team wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. You know, you want your 3 wide receivers to put up more than 14.5 points, and that's Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, and Curtis Samuel. He loses Tyreek Hill for what's going to look like at least a month, probably upwards of 2 for that broken collarbone. Zach Ertz gives him 5.5. James White was serviceable. The kicker and defense puts up 24. For Schumann this week, bad game from Baker Mayfield. Decent game from his wide receivers, though, 31.5 from Godwin, Gordon, and Fuller. He doesn't exactly have a wide receiver that stands out as an, oh my God, I don't want to play this guy. But he's got, upside guys in Godwin, Gordon, Fuller, and Kiki QT who could be, a really, really good set of number 2s on what would be a lot of other teams. Especially Fuller and QT. I think they kind of play the same role. And if QT gets healthy and plays later this year, in fact, he could play as early as next week, that could cut into each other's time. And I don't like that necessarily for him going forward. But at the end of the day, the running backs is where Schumann really has us by the balls. Le'Veon Bell, Matt Breida, Zeke Elliott, he's got Kareem Hunt sitting on the bench, and Jordan Howard. I mean, those 5 guys, any one of them from here on out could be the top scoring running back of the week. And I'm not exaggerating here. Matt Breida is going to get a ton of time now with Tevin Coleman going down. Jordan Howard could establish himself as the running back in Philly. I don't think that's going to happen, but he could. Add in the tight end of George Kittle and the kicker and defense who put up 14 points. This was a disappointing week for Schumann, but there's a lot to like going forward. I don't necessarily believe in the Cleveland Browns as much as he does, but if Baker Mayfield can turn himself around this week doing the hokey pokey against the Jets, well, then okay. We'll see if he can do that. Adds this week, Frank adds Marquise Brown, the number 1 in Baltimore this week. I think he put up close to 30 points. And he drops Jason Witten for Terry McLaurin. He did this over in WNFL as well, so I think he really has this belief that Terry McLaurin might be the next great Washington Redskins wide receiver. And you know what? He kind of needs it. Losing Tyreek Hill is going to force him to play either Cortland Sutton or this kid McLaurin, and we'll see what if that's going to be a play that pays off, because Julio Jones is going to have to carry the load here, and then it's a bunch of question marks. Is Curtis Samuel the guy in Carolina? They had a terrible passing game this week. If not for Christian McCaffrey, that game is not even close. Cortland Sutton, he put up 120 yards this week. Is that going to be Joe Flacco's option? Or are they going to go in another direction? And isn't this McLaurin kid for real? Those are the questions Frank's wide receiving core has to answer. I don't know what it'll be, but that'll be what we'll focus on week after week. Schumann carried Kiki QT and Trey Burton this week onto his roster, and neither of them were suiting up. Burton is still not playing. He's got George Kittle. What are you doing? What are you doing holding on to this guy? It's an open roster. It's dead weight. I wouldn't hang on to this guy. Frank takes the number 5 spot in the Coors division. Schumann, the bottom of the barrel, the natural light of beer in the Coors division. We'll move on to the newcomer, Pete Langworth, the Eater of Worlds, who took on Lil C is not happy, Adam Kirby. And Lil C is not happy this week either with his performance. For Pete, great performance from Watson. 31 points out of his wide receiving core of Keenan Allen and Jarvis Landry. I only highlight those two guys because Anthony Miller apparently played football this past weekend, but you wouldn't know it because he didn't catch anything. So what's the point? Like, he had one ball thrown to him, and he did not catch it, and that's all he gets paid to do is catch the football. He did not catch the football. He put up 0 points and has as many yards on the season as you, me, and anyone else who is not a football player. Running backs, he got Damian Williams and James Conner for 19 points. It's kind of disappointing when you think about it because James Conner should have been a lot better, but that game was a blowout early, and they just had to keep passing the ball rather than handing the ball off to Conner. Damian Williams was serviceable, got a touchdown and I guess, 40, 50, 65 total yards. Vance McDonald was a disappointment at the tight end. Dede Westbrook was okay at the flex position. I don't know how much value he's going to hold with Nick Foles going down with the collarbone injury, but we'll see. And then his kickers and defense combined for 5 points in Rosas and Philly. Over on Adam's side, it was really the disappointment. Only one of his entire roster scored more than 10 points, and that was Alshon Jeffrey in the flex spot. His team just grossly underperformed. Juju and Big Ben did not perform. Brandon Cooks was bad. Tyler Boyd was bad. Nick Chubb was not good in a game that they had to pass the ball a ton more because they got blown out. Devontae Freeman was awful. Kyle Rudolph did not catch any passes either. He had one target as well. So he and Anthony Miller should just go play the I'm not playing football, but I'm collecting checks for playing football club. His kicker and defense was Crosby and Dallas. They put up 10 points. Waiver ads this week, Pete dropped Dion Lewis and added John Ross. John Ross could be the new wide receiver in Cincy if they're going to go with him instead of Tyler Boyd. And that'd be disappointing for guys who drafted Tyler Boyd like Adam. And Adam's going to lose Tevin Coleman now for a few weeks. Tevin Coleman was on his bench, and now he's got a high ankle sprain. He's going to miss a few games. That running back group of Chubb, Freeman, and Darrell Henderson and Rashad Penny all of a sudden just got a bit thinner. Darrell Henderson he had one attempt for no yards, so he can go play football with Kyle Rudolph and Anthony Miller. Rashad Penny got 18 yards. And Adam also had Corey Davis, who didn't catch a pass. Jesus Christ, Adam, your team sucked this week. Your team sucked this week. After this week, Adam's in last place, and coming off of a year where he finished in last place, I don't think this is the way he wanted to start the season. Pete takes second place in the Budweiser division, 6th overall. And with that, guys, that's going to be the review for this week. Again, if you guys want to be a part of this, if you guys want to make this show your own, let me know. There's a ton we can do with this. I'm only doing about 25 minutes going over these things. We can expand this out and make this as fun as we want. Until next week, fuck all you. I'm awesome. And I'm a 2-time champion. Here's my... Wait, you can't even see it. There's my trophy. Hi, trophy. I love you. Bye.